Hey, Blakey here from Golf Rules Questions, and although there has been a small break between episode 50 and 51, I'm sure you'll agree with our next guest, it was well worth the wait. We are very fortunate to have Mr. Jerry Duffy, who has been a member of the USGA Senior Amateur Committee, as well as scoring 98% on a USGA rules exam. Join Fraser and myself for episode 51 of the Golf Rules Questions podcast. I hope you enjoy it. But firstly, just before we get into episode 51 with Jerry and Fraser, just want to go over the answer for episode 50 with Marcella. So the question, just to reiterate, Amy and Becky are partners in a 4-ball match against Charlene and Debbie. Charlene's ball was at rest on the green just past the hole. Her partner Debbie is about to chip onto the green from the fringe. Amy asks Charlene to mark her ball on the green. Charlene refuses to mark and lift her ball. Debbie chips up and her ball hits Charlene's ball at rest, causing it to roll a few inches further away. What's the ruling, and how would it differ if this was a stroke play event? So the answer is, in match play, as Charlene refused to mark her ball, Charlene is going to get the general penalty of loss of hole, and as it helped Debbie, her partner, she will also get loss of hole penalty, so they lose the hole. In stroke play, they would both get the general penalty of 2 strokes. Interpretation 23.8a 2/1 is a very good reference for this situation.
The first known rules of golf were drawn up in 1744 by the Gentlemen Golfers of Edinburgh in Leith, Scotland. Since then, the game has changed dramatically. Golf courses, equipment, and not least the rules. So where do I go when I want to learn about the rules of the game today? Well, I go to the Golf Rules Questions podcast with Blakey and Roscoe, of course. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Golf Rules Questions podcast.
Welcome everyone to episode 51 of the Golf Rules Questions podcast. Today I'm joined by suitable co-host in Fraser Nicol. Fraser, you'll remember, was on episode 48. And we have a very special guest all the way from North Carolina, USA, Jerry Duffy. Welcome, Jerry and Fraser.
Well, thanks.
Thank you, Blakey.
Good to be here.
Yes, no, this is an excellent start to the interview, and we're all in different time zones. Obviously, Fraser's in the UK time zone. What's your time there, Fraser?
It's just gone 7:30.
7:30 p.m. Jerry.
PM, that is.
We are 3:30 East Coast time here in the States.
3:30, and yours changes this weekend for daylight savings. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's coming up next week.
Yeah, and then in Aussie, where I am in Melbourne, it's 6:30 a.m. in the morning. So all very different times of the day, and we're just in Melbourne. If you're in Melbourne, you're probably just getting your clubs ready, hitting the road, and about to tee it up at your course. So I hope you have a good day because it looks sunny out there. Right, so let's get into it. Jerry, welcome to the podcast. Would you like to firstly explain to the listeners who you are, and how you got started in golf?
Well, I'm a retired salesman. I got into golf as a young boy, taught by my father how to swing, and been playing golf pretty much ever since, and been active with it.
And yeah, I mean that's how most people get into golf, through their parents. I certainly got into golf through my parents. Good. Yeah, Fraser, same.
Yeah, my my father dropped me off at the golf club when I was 7 years old on a Monday morning on the first day of my 7-week summer holiday, and I still remember it to this day. He gave me 3 golf balls, and he said, "That's to last you the week, son. Don't be losing." My nickname was Spotter. because I always spotted where the balls went because I knew I couldn't afford to lose mine. So depending whether I liked you or not, I would find your ball. But if you miss hit one off a tee and you curse and didn't bother to keep an eye on it, I wouldn't find it until the next round later on in the day when I wasn't playing with you, and I'd go pick it up.
You're a meanie, Fraser.
My first job was selling second-hand golf balls because by the end of the week I would have a bucket load.
What about you, Jerry? Were you spotting balls, or are you losing them?
Actually, I didn't play very much. I did the golf swing. He would come home and sit on the porch, and there was a little grassy area near the porch, and he would say, "Okay, Jerry, get the club, let's go." And he would yell out instruction: "No, stiff left arm, roll the feet, full shoulder turn." He would just yell out instructions. And in fact, when I finally got around to hitting the golf ball, I actually had a pretty good swing. But I wouldn't play very much until I became a young man, and that's when I really took it up. And but all those little messages stayed in my mind. I wasn't always able to do them, but at least I remembered them.
What kind of handicap did you get yourself down to?
Most of my golfing time, I was a 4, 5, 6. I think one summer I got it to 3, but that didn't last very long. Then I took some time off. I got back to it. I took about 2 years off, got back to it, and now I can't break an egg.
How often do you play now?
I guess I'm playing now back three times a week.
Nice. And what's your home club that you play at? Home course?
I play at the Country Club of Landfall here in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Yeah. Are you a member of the committee there?
I am not, but I do. They do know I'm a rules person, so I frequently get calls from members. Now, of course, when I'm playing with the groups I play with, I spend a great deal of time looking the other way and not saying anything. But I do get calls from the pro staff occasionally.
I was having a conversation with my friend Stuart yesterday about looking the other way and not, wanting people to learn the rules and know the rules, but at the same time wanting to still have people playing with me next week. So it's an interesting juggling act when you're trying to educate people on how to play the game, within the confines of the rules, but also not to be that person that sort of tells everyone how to do it all the time. So what do you do now, apart from play golf? What do you do now in a rules of golf job, career, occupation? Is it just a love of keeping informed?
No, I've been a rules person for, has to be 25 years. Right now, I'm a member of the Senior Amateur committee at the USGA. Done 14 of those events and hope that continues. In fact, this past weekend, I officiated at an NCAA college event here at Landfall. So the Southern Golf Association, I'm a member of their board. And as you may know, over here, that means you officiate golf tournaments. So I'm still pretty active with the rules. And I hope to continue to do it. It's a great hobby.
Those NCAA tournaments, see, I don't know too much about them other than it's a fantastic competition. You've got NCAA Division 1s to 1, 2, and 3. How many competitors did they get at that tournament you just officiated at?
We had too many because of pace of play. I believe the total came out to 95. I think the ideal tournament is 60 to 70 right in there, but pace of play becomes an issue. But it's become expected now. So they fill these events up and you get to par 3s and everybody waits, but nobody complains because they're used to it.
Yeah, wow. And then they get on the PGA Tour and they just play the same as they did when they were in college.
Yeah, the person who invented that line on the ball added 20 minutes to every round.
That's probably
Yeah.
that's probably a good idea. I mean, a good point.
I'd love to see his bank balance, Jerry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr.
Those
Pro
events, are they
V1.
playing 3-ball or 4-ball, Jerry? How do you pair them up? If you've got a field size of 60 to 90, is it 3-ball?
No, it's just stroke play, and
Yeah,
it's a 3-ball, three persons,
3-ball, yeah.
three players to a group, and they just play stroke play.
And yeah, and then it's an individual and a teams thing overall. Is that right?
That's correct.
Nice. So how many people sort of on the rules committee for an NCAA?
We had on this, it varies depending on how many you have in the area, but I would say the average is around 10. USGA events, of course, are a lot different. Our committees are pretty expansive, and we come in from all over the country to do the major events.
Okay. Yeah, 10's a good number. I think some of the pro tournaments that I've done, you're hoping to have at least 8. 9 is great because you get like a 30 to 45 minute break. And if it's a tricky, one of those resort type courses where you can't just race across the fairways to another hole, you're hoping for at least 9 to 10. What is Lansfall? Is that sort of in a paddock, or is it around water? Is it how is it sort of designed?
What is paddock?
in a field.
No, it's not a paddock. It's actually what we would call here a housing development course.
Yeah.
Houses, they're pretty far back from the golf course itself, but the golf course meanders its way through a community.
Yeah. I mean, I know that like in London, Fraser, at Wentworth, that's just Wentworth is basically just a big circle that goes around the houses, apart from maybe 7, 8, 9, but it's a big circle. So getting from 8 to 17, you can't just cross fairway. You've got to go all the way around, follow the course. So it takes a lot of time to get from some holes to the other holes. But so you got into golf, and where did the fascination with the rules start, Jerry?
Well, actually started 25, 30 years ago on a golf trip. My golf buddies and I were in Doral in Florida, and I'll never forget the day. We were on the Gold course at Doral, and I hit my drive on a hole near a out of bounds fence. Of course, I had a provisional, and being stupid, it was the same brand and the same number without any markings on it, of course. And we got down there, and both balls were inbounds. And I tried to pick the one that was the dirtiest, telling all the guys, I said, look, this is the one I've been playing with. So it's dirtier than the other one. Oh, no, you've got to be able to identify your ball. You're back to the tee, Duffy, So they chased me back to the tee, and I didn't know any better. So I went back there, lost that bet. That cost me. And then on the airplane on the way back, I said, I'm going to look that up. And I finally grabbed the rule book, and I looked it up, and I said, that was wrong. As you two know, and your listeners probably know, you have a choice when they're both in bounds, and you pick one, which was, I thought, really neat. You don't have many choices under the rules. You pick one, and that becomes your second provisional ball. But anyway, I started to study the rules after that, so I wouldn't lose any bets, So, and by the way, I've gotten my money back many times after that with my buddies.
I was.
But then, you wanted the history. I just started writing rules articles for the club, and that was fun. And then it just steamrolled from there. I got on the board of the Maryland State Golf Association, which again, you officiate their events, and became president in 2013. And then I met my rules mentor, a fellow by the name of Randy Reed, who encouraged me to attend the workshops from USGA. And after 2 or 3 of those, I became fully certified as a USGA official, and then got appointed to the Senior Am committee, and wound up doing those events and 10 other USGA events, and there you go. And still going.
That's awesome. Do you write rules questions as well? Like with your articles, do you write a couple of rules questions?
Well, I don't do the articles anymore. I don't do the questions. I look to Fraser for those. But my real turning event in the rules happened around 2012 or 13 when I was attending some seminars at clubs, put on by various groups. And some of the presenters were too sophisticated for club players, and other presenters, were, well, boring, So I said, wait a minute, these seminars needed to be jazzed up a little bit. So I kind of worked on it, and I devised a format that, put passion into it and humor, told a lot of good rule stories from events that I had been to. So I started to do some at the local club level, and the pros loved it. The members loved it. And the Maryland State Golf Association said, you're our guy, Duffy. You're going to do all our seminars. And it just really took off. And I must have done over 150 over the years at the club level for 2 hours each. And, they would have them year after year after year. And they found that the members really thought the pro was great because they had put on these good seminars. So COVID, of course, killed all that, Blakey. And so maybe now that I'm in North Carolina and COVID winds its way down, we can start up the seminars, which, by the way, we called Know and Play by the Rules.
Nice. So with that upbeat energy, was that from the salesman days, Jerry? Is that where that sort of
I don't know. It's funny. I tell people about my salesman days that when I was selling professionally, which I did all my career, people wouldn't recognize me. I was quiet and subtle. I mean, I was trained salesman, so I knew listening was more important. But I'll tell you what, I had to fight my big mouth a lot. I can tell you that. But the seminars worked not because I was particularly good. I was just different than, the typical real rules person who, I don't know, they're just a little smarter and more serious than I was. I kind of took a lighter vein towards them. And I think I could identify with the club player who didn't want to hear about decisions. They wanted to know what the difference between yellow and red was, So it worked out very, very well.
In your seminars, you note that rules can help a player. Have you got an example that you can give us?
I do have an example. In fact, it actually happened to me. So it was a real true example. My partner and I were playing these fellows one day in a 4-ball match, and we came to 18 all even. And my opponent was in 4. It was a par 4. My partner was in his pocket, as it usually was that day, and I had an 8-foot putt straight up the hill for birdie to win the $50. So I putted it, and it got about 4 inches from the hole. Left it short. And I walked up discouraged, and I put my putter down and putted it across the hole, over the green, over the fringe, and down into the driving range. Well, my opponent jumped up and said, Duffy, he said, remember, we said on the first tee, no gimmies, no automatic concessions. We didn't give you that putt. We didn't say anything. I said, oh, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry. It's my fault. There goes that 50. My partner, he's upset. So I'm walking back towards the fringe to get my green, and I turned my ball, and I turned around to the fellas. I said, look, guys, give me a chance at my money back. I'll bet you I make 6 on the hole. They said, you're 5 now. I said, yeah, but I got a flop shot. I can get up and down. My partner said, Duffy, you're at the bottom of the hill. You're in 4 inches of rough. The green's sloping towards the front. No, you can't even get it on the green. I said, Mickelson's got nothing on me. I can get this up and down. So he said, I don't want anything to do with this. So I walked down. I took my 60-degree wedge. I laid that thing on the ground. I opened it up. And then I picked my ball up. And the opponent said, what are you doing? I said, I'm taking an unplayable lie drop. They said, well, that's a penalty. You're 5 now. I said, yes, sir. And I started walking back towards the hole, and they're looking at me very strange, And I went up and I started to put the ball down around 4 inches from the hole. I said, of course, under the unplayable lie rule, one of my options is to replay the shot. Is that about where it was? So I put the ball down, And as I'm standing over the 4-incher, you know, they run to the pro shop. And my partner says, well, aren't you going to go in there with them? And I said, no, I only go in on the hard ones. So that was a rule that really helped the player. And by the way, they paid up.
That's brilliant. I wouldn't have even thought to do that. Did you have a feeling you were going to set that up from the start, or did it just come to you in an epiphany?
I'll tell you, it just hit me. It just hit me. And by the way, the reason that made it such a great story is there was no way I was getting up and down from that driving range. I can tell you that.
So that sort of leads me to my next question. Why are the rules of golf important? Like, why, you know, the three of us here, obviously, stickler is a word that comes to mind. We're sticklers for the rules of golf. Why are they important, or why do you think that they're so important?
Well, over here we call us guys rules nerds.
Yeah.
Not sticklers, but I would say the rules are important mainly because of competition. Human nature, and I don't know anything about human nature, but I know all of us like to compete in some fashion. I mean, it could be for a Coke. It's not the amount. It's competition's important. I think if people don't compete or anything, or even monitor their score, there wouldn't be any need for the rules. Do whatever you want. Just go out there and have a walk in the park. But as soon as you start any kind of competition, whether it's friendly or something serious, things begin to change. And I tell the story about George. This is a true story. George lived in Chicago, and he came east to the Philadelphia area to play in a member guest. He was so excited. And I don't know about over there, but at our club level, the 3-day member guest is their big deal, you know, their big tournament of the year. And the clubs really go all out. And George is all excited, and he shows up, and he's out there on the first day of play. And one of the fellows they were playing with said, George, you have 15 clubs in your bag. Oh, well, what's the matter with that? My guys don't care. I said, well, it's a tournament, George. They said to him, that's a 2-shot penalty per hole, maximum of 4. You just incurred a 4-shot penalty. And then his partner jumped in and said, that's 4 shots for the team, George. Oh, well, the second day, they're out there, and, you know, it didn't take him very long. It was only on the second hole. He picks his ball up to identify it. Yeah, that's me. And he never marked it. And the opponent says, George, you just can't pick your ball up. That's a penalty. Oh, geez. You know, the back 9 of the second day, his partner called a penalty on him. So he hit a ball into the fringe from the fairway, and it made a pitch mark and backed up a little bit. And George went and tapped down the pitch mark. His partner says, George, you can't improve the area of your intended play. That's another 2-shot penalty. What is going on with you? Well, poor George, he was getting a little upset over this. Well, third day, last day of the tournament, I couldn't believe this. They were still in the hunt. They could win their flight. And I know this is a long story, but he gets there and he hits his balls. He's putting all that rule stuff behind him. He's really going to concentrate. He goes out there. He hits his balls on the range. He wants to go to the putting green. He goes over the putting green. It's crowded. Everybody's putting. There's no room to putt. Well, he looks over and there's the 18th hole over there. You know, there's nobody there. So he says, well, I'll go over there on that. I'll putt over there. So he goes over there. He's putting over there on 18. Of course, the pro season. Pro comes over to me. He says, Duffy, you're a rules guy. Come on over here. You got to help me. I said, is that George? He said, yeah. I said, I heard about him. So we walk over there, and the pro goes, George, you're not allowed. This is a penalty. You're not allowed to practice on the course of the competitive stroke play event that before the event starts. George says, oh, geez. Well, how many strokes is that? George, I'm sorry. The penalty for this violation is disqualification. Oh, my gosh. He starts to turn red, you know. And then he says, well, at least my partner could play. No, George, your partner's disqualified too. Oh, I'm going to tell you something, Blakey. This guy, I swear he had tears in his eyes. He was so excited for this tournament. And now here he is. He's disqualified. He and his partner, they can't even play the last day. And he feels so bad because he didn't know the rules, basic rules. But, you know, the end of that story was, I think he took it fairly well, because he looked up at the pro and he says, sir, can I still go to the dinner? So he went to the dinner and he was a good sport, but I talked to him about it. And he said, look, Duffy, first thing I do when I get home is Chicago is I'm going to get some rule books and I'm going to read them. And this will never happen to me again.
Well, that's a good point. What is your recommendation of how someone should start to learn the rules? Like, and I'll just jump in just before you say anything. I personally would not say go and read the rule book unless you are having problems sleeping. Reading from cover to cover to me would put you to sleep. So that my recommendation wouldn't be to just go and read the rule book. But that may be something you might have a different take on that, or you might have something else that you'd suggest.
Well, there's two levels, I think. One level is just learning the rules as a club player. I agree with you. You shouldn't read the rule book. I think you should try your local golf association, and most of them have seminars. And they cover the basics that you need to go out there and play decent golf. You can go to YouTube and look up Jerry Duffy and see Harbor Ridge and put Jerry Duffy Harbor Ridge, and you'll get a good seminar. But at a different level, if you really want to get into them and become a rules official or referee, I always suggest that people read the Principles by Tufts, the Principles of the Rules of Golf. USGA has it on their website. And the Principles of the Rules of Golf, when you read that little pamphlet, if you really like it and you're interested in it, you have a chance of becoming a rules official. If you don't find it really fascinating, forget it. You won't enjoy. Just stay with your local club rules.
Actually, that's a good point. Do you know if Tufts is going to update the rules?
Well, yeah, they already updated it once. I think David Stabler of the USGA orchestrated that. I'm not sure if that was all him, but I do know that with the new 2019 rules, they plan on updating it again. Now, they've got a lot on their plate, since then, so they haven't done it yet, but I'm pretty sure they're going to update that with the 2019 rules.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I really like that book too. So,
yeah. 1956, if I remember rightly.
Yeah,
1956.
And then can you remember when he updated it?
I'm going to guess it was about 8 years ago.
Okay,
six to 8 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah. But you're right, they are. I know there's a project ongoing, Jerry. A couple of folks have said to me that, they're creating a modernized version of those old principles, under the umbrella of the 2019 program. I thought it was going to be coming out last year and then maybe this year, but I suspect they might hold off now till 2023. Get that first rewrite under the belt, and have everything just finessed and everything, all the little niggles sorted out, and then start with a nice clean fresh canvas, or just put the finishing touches to it based on what we see in 2023. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, I leading it off from that, that's a great suggestion, Jerry. This is kind of why I started Golf Rules Questions, because I found that the way to learn the rules was, and it goes back to what you said about competition. People love question and answers because when they get a question, especially about something that they think they know, then they answer and they want to find the answer. And then when they get it wrong, they go, what? No, that's not right. And first of all, they get defensive and say, no, that person who's created this question's wrong. And then they go and read it. That gets them into the book, and it's like, okay, I need to find that. And so, Fraser, as you mentioned before, he's got thousands upon thousands of questions and created thousands himself. Just a fantastic resource. when you find question. And there's plenty out there. It's not just us. There's plenty of question and answers. The USGA do, a lot on their site. The RNA do a lot on their site. Just good ways to learn the rules, but definitely learning the principles. And, in the latest rewrite, the 2019, they actually kind of put the principle at the start of the rule. I know the RNA Rules Committee chairman at the time, David, last name,
Rickman?
No, the committee chairman. That's terrible. Anyway, he was really keen to put that principle thing at the start of the rule, trying to tell people what this is about. So, yeah, really good point there. So you officiate at collegiate or college tournaments. What are the rules knowledge, or what's the rules knowledge like of those kids? You call them kids, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's very poor. And it flows from the coaches whose rules knowledge is very poor. Some of the seminars I've done for colleges, I do the same thing. I started off with taking 10 of the players from the front, and I give each one of them a scenario that happens to them out there on the golf course. A very short little scenario. This is going to happen to you. And the question I'm going to ask them at the end is what happened to them? Did they get nothing happen to them? Did they get a one-shot? It's all stroke play. Did they get a one-shot penalty, a two-shot penalty, or DQ? 4 things can happen. I don't know isn't one of them. They weren't allowed to vote. I don't know. So I gave them each a scenario, and then we got all finished. I said, okay, who had nothing happen to them? And, a couple hands went up. Who had a one-shot penalty? A couple more hands went up. Who got a two-shot penalty? Well, the rest of the hands went up. So I said, well, nobody was DQ'd. No hands went up for DQ. And this happened, many times. I might get one DQ. So then I always say to the coach, I said, Coach, you have significant problems here because every one of your players has just been DQ'd. Because I would give them all the possible DQ scenarios. So I start with that. And I say, look, if we're going to learn anything, you people ought to learn the DQ rules. You don't want to get yourself thrown out of a tournament. So their eyes kind of light up. They know at their level, they better not embarrass their team.
That's a great starting point. Let's start with the DQ. Let's make sure you stay in the tournament.
Stay in the tournament.
Because if you don't stay in the tournament, there's no more golf for you. So don't worry about learning the rules. I love that.
Yeah. I'd never thought about it that way, but logically, that's the last thing you want to do is breach a rule that's a DQ. And there's not many of them actually to think about it. I can maybe rattle 6 off my head.
Well, there's so many little,
and they're pretty
basic. Little subtle ones. There's a lot of subtle ones that you forget about, Fraser, but they're in there. I even had the coaches. What was the one? They had no chance at this one. The event was a player was in the first fairway, and he looks in his bag and he says, oh, geez, I forgot to take that demo driver out of my bag. I've got 15 clubs in my bag. Oh, he's upset, finishes the hole, gets to the second tee, tells his fellow competitors, hey, I got this demo driver. I'm going to take it out of play. I'm going to accept the 2-shot penalty. Well, that player's been DQ'd. And those kids had no chance of knowing that. See, as you know, the rule says that when you find out that you violated the 15 club rule, you've got to take that 1 club out of play immediately. And immediately means before you play another stroke. Well, our little college player finished the hole and told everybody on the second tee, too late. They're in the parking lot. Trunk slammer, So they've got no chance at knowing that unless somebody eggs them on and gets them to learn these little things.
Wow.
Yeah. Some of the rules can be quite brutal. Some of them can be quite harsh, but it's almost as if you need to have that club counter on the first tee, your starter, bag inspection.
And it even works at the other end. We had to DQ a couple of the college girls. Oh, the tears and all that was another story. The scoring called and said, "Hey, I've got one player here in scoring and the other two haven't shown up yet." So 15, 20, 25 minutes went by. The two players never showed up. One went to look at her teammates finish, and another one went to the driving range. Finally, after, one was 22 minutes and the other was 26 minutes, they show up. So they got DQ'd, and the coaches, of course, had no clue why they were DQ'd. The tournament's still going on. Well, I said, the rule says, the players have to turn their scorecards in promptly. And they wanted to know what promptly meant. And I said, I don't really know what it is, but I know it's not 22 and 26. I know that much. So those coaches now know what turn your score in promptly means.
On that, have you seen a development in scorecards through mobile apps yet, Jerry, or is it still paper over there?
It may be around somewhere. I've heard of it, but I have never seen it.
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of it, and just in clubland for COVID, but so it's definitely been developed, definitely there, and the RNA made a provision, the USGA have made provisions in the rules for that mobile type, that app type digital scorecard. But yeah, I just wanted to know, then you got the whole signatures and approval or acceptance of the score and stuff like that. But yeah, you're still going paper. I don't see the professional tournaments ever not being paper, but who knows? Yeah. So do you actually, just leading off from that rules knowledge of the college players, what about the pros at the clubs that you know of? When you do your seminars, these pros that look after the clubs and the member guests, what's their rules knowledge like?
Slightly better than the college coaches. But I made it a point when you get there and I'm setting up for the seminar, the pro would come by and we'd chat, and I would ask them just a couple of things and we'd get started in some rule discussions. And I just wanted to get a flavor for, where they were in their rules knowledge. And it wasn't very good. And I had many of them tell me, they weren't bashful. They came out after the seminar and they said, Duffy, that's unbelievable. I learned so much. I mean, forget the players. I learned a lot. And the assistant pros are the ones that really killed me. I would ask the assistant pros a few things and wondering, how the new PGA of America, PGA teach these fellows before they get certified as pros. And these assistants didn't understand the question, let alone the answer. So, the pros are okay, but the assistant pros, I hope they're not there to run a tournament, especially a ladies tournament on Thursday. They're going to get themselves handed to them, I'll tell you.
That's a great point. Do you know their education process for the PGA of America and the rules?
I really don't, but they tell me that it's not very, very sophisticated. And I can tell that just from, just chatting to these folks. They don't, I don't know what it is, but it should be better.
Surely sitting through a USGA/PGA workshop and making sure you get at least 70 or something like that would be the requirements?
Well, it's not. They have their own workshop, and it's not anything like the USGA workshops.
Yeah.
Here in the UK, Blake, I know my nephew's done his PGA coaching badge. He's been to the Belfry where they're based, and as part of his certification, they had a module on the rules, and you basically had to pass that module, to acquire your full badge. And they said it was a full rule book, had to study it over 6 months, and can't remember what he said the pass mark was, but it was you know, it was probably around the 70, 75 mark. So certainly here in the UK, they're being pushed. But I think I feel for the pros, you know, because they're out there, they're under pressure to make money. Here in the UK, a lot of pros they're not paid by the club. They run the shop, and the shop is their business, and it's everything they sell. That's their profit. And you know, they're so focused on that they really don't have time, you know, to look at the rules and support the rules. And I've experienced that at a number of clubs where the pros just haven't kept up with it, you know, haven't kept abreast, you know, have lost touch with what's out there, especially since 2019. You know, they're not keeping up.
Well, if they're not up with them, there's not any gambling going on at their club. I can tell you that. You go to a club where there's some gambling going on, and you'll find yourself a pretty good pro rules official. I'll tell you that.
That's right. That's spot on. So yeah, well, that's a good point. So Fraser,
put your money where your mouth is.
do they not have, you know, they're looking after the retail side of the pro shop, the golf shop. Do they not do a lot of competition management?
Well, you've got a mix of different clubs here in the UK. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but a lot of the clubs in the UK are what we call members clubs.
Yeah, I think the Australian system's pretty similar.
Yeah, you've got the same. The clubs are owned by the members and run by the members, and as such, there'll be a committee.
Yeah.
And you know, traditionally on that committee, you'll have a competition secretary responsible for all competition. He might be backed up, supported by a handicap secretary, although a lot of clubs now, because of the, you know, the automation that we can now enjoy with a number of the systems out there, they've kind of merged that role. That's what I did. So yeah, so the committees are responsible for it, which means the pros in the pro shop actually aren't involved at all.
Right. Okay.
They know you play in one of those competitions. If it's a members club, you come off the course, you have a rules issue. It's the committee you go to,
not the pro.
And if you go to the pro and he gives you a ruling and you don't refer that back to the committee and they find out about it, and if it was a disqualification, tough luck. They don't say, hey, okay, we'll let you off because the pro told you. No.
That pro is not a member of the rules committee.
Correct.
Wow.
He has it doesn't work that way here in the States at all.
How's it go?
It's different, Jerry. Different.
Yeah,
you know.
It doesn't work that way at all here. The committee is, you know, the golf committee is made up of, you know, shoemakers, teachers, and lawyers. You know, they don't. But all the rulings are made by the real committee is the individual who's monitoring and running the course or the competition. And 95, unless it's being sponsored by an outside organization like the Maryland State Golf Association or an event NCAA, then they have their own committee. But if absent that, the golf shop, the pro or the assistant pro is the one that adjudicates all the rules questions, which come up, you know, quite frequently.
Yeah, we sort of have a hybrid of both of your systems. We'll have our member clubs, but the pro will be basically given the keys to the shop, you know, the keys to the house. The pro will be a representative because he's there all the time or she's there all the time. So who are the players going to talk to? They're going to talk to the pro. So the committee give the pro that honorary sort of committee membership, so that if they make a decision for the player, the players are free to play under that decision. So it's sort of a hybrid model of both of your systems. But with the update of the rules in 2019, you know, I'm guessing you thought that it was a great idea, Jerry. How have you found it so far, and which rule would you still want to or would love to change? And you know, which rules have you found have been a great change so far?
I think the simplification aspect has been wonderful, and the three things that the simplification was an objective. They accomplished that. They wanted to reduce penalties. They did that.
Yeah.
And they wanted to simplify the procedures and make them easier. So the procedures are easier, the penalties are reduced. So I thought overall they did a very good job. The ones I would change, I'm not presumptuous enough to know what I would want changed. I call them the smarty pants guys who make these rules, and they know how they all interact. Every time I want to change a rule, it's because I don't understand why it's there, and I don't understand how it ties into other rules. So I've acknowledged my own ignorance, and I've given up picking and choosing between bad rules and good rules. To me, they're just all rules. Now that said, because of my ignorance, I do struggle with why they have some of these rules. Like the embedded ball rule, I can't figure that one out. As you all know, and your listeners know, if your ball embeds in the general area, you get relief. And then you pick it up and you drop it in the soft mud, and it embeds again. Well, now tough luck. You got to play it. The embedded ball rule only applies as a result of your previous shot. So if you're in soft mud and you drop it again, it's going to drop. Even if you're dropping from your knee, it's going to embed a little bit. It's going to break the surface of the ground. And I always wanted to know if it was okay to get relief the first time, why isn't it okay to get relief the second time? I don't get that one. And the other one was that I couldn't get. I still don't get this one. Do you know the instruction we had, Fraser, for backstopping when a ball was near a hole in stroke play, and that ball was in a position to assist another player? The referee section in the book gave us instructions, told us that we should stop play. And as long as we didn't delay play, we need that ball marked. I mean, somebody's got to protect the field here, So we need that ball marked. That made perfect sense to me, Well, they took that away. This past weekend, I had to sit and watch it. I had to watch a ball sit 2 feet from a hole, clearly in a position to help the other player who was chipping from the right and back of the green. And I got to sit there and watch that. So and I'm not saying change it. I'm sure there's a reason for it. I'm just saying I don't understand why we can't do that anymore. But maybe in the next revamp they'll put it back in. They don't talk to me, Blakey, when they're making these decisions.
I wish they did. So what about
ones backstopping ones in this? There's two or three clarifications being provided for it, and I had an argument not that long ago with someone, and I said there's one little word, just one word you have to read very carefully to understand whether there's a penalty or not, and the word
agreement.
Is should. Players should,
yeah,
should. Mark the ball.
It's best practice.
Should, not must, just should.
What about the divots rule, Jerry? Would you be giving people free relief from divots in the fairway?
Well, it's amazing. I heard that when they were doing the comment period for the new rules over a long period of time, by far the number one comment from players all around the world, I'm sure RNA was the same, the biggest recommendation was change that darn divot rule. And of course, I did hear that when they had their meeting on it, the big committee group there, they spent over 8 years. You can imagine how many phone calls and emails, video recordings, and how many discussions they had. And I was told on this particular rule, they spent a total of 20 minutes.
Wow.
Somebody in the rules meeting said the first thing we have to do if we're going to address this divot rule, everybody wants us to, is define when a divot is no longer a divot. So even the smarty pants, looked at each other in amazement. They couldn't figure it out. No one could define when a divot's no longer a divot. When is it fully healed? And then I think I heard, now this is all rumors, but I heard somebody from the R&A said, well, even if we could figure out when a divot is no longer a divot, we're not going to change it anyway. So I have a story about that. If you want to hear about Payne Stewart, if you remember Payne Stewart, I know you guys do, but high schoolers I talked to about Payne Stewart, they didn't know who I was talking about.
Of course.
Anyway, it was at the US Open. He hadn't won a major. It was the US Open at Olympic Club in California, I believe. And I think it was 1998. He was leading the tournament on Sunday. And on the 12th or 13th hole, he got a sand-filled divot in the fairway and he was furious. He's yelling at everybody. Anyway, he flares the ball out, makes bogey or double bogey and loses the US Open by 1. Oh, he's furious. So he runs down and David Fay from the USGA was there. He was the executive director of the USGA, and Stewart tracked him down, said, Mr. Fay, you got to change that divot rule. We shouldn't have to play out of divots in the fairway. And David Fay was reported to say to him, Mr. Stewart, with all due respect, the game we play is a game of adversity. There's wind, there's rain, there's bunkers, there's trees, there's bushes, sand-filled divots. May I suggest, Mr. Stewart, you go to the range and learn how to play out of them. Well, several years later, Payne Stewart was now the head of the PGA Tour Policy Board. You know, that's the big deal. And they had their year-end meeting, and they're talking about their $1 million problems. And Greg Norman said, Mr. Stewart, before we close, I recommend we go to the USGA and get them to change that darn divot rule. And Payne Stewart said, you know, sir, let me tell you something. With all due respect, the game we play is a game of adversity. There's wind, there's rain, there's bunch of other. May I suggest, Mr. Norman, you go to the range and learn how to play out. And so that really happened. And in fact, I believe his caddy was named Bill Hicks, I think. It was Hicks. And he told the story that the following year at Pinehurst, when Payne Stewart won, he was in 3 divots all week, and his caddy, Mr. Hicks, said he parred every one of them. So that was a good ending.
I love that. You know, that sits really well with what I was told by Andy McPhee, who used to be a referee on the European Tour. The game of golf is a challenge of your character before it's a challenge of skill, you know, and how we actually swing the club is less about the game of golf and how we actually face the challenges. You know, if you end up in a divot or you end up in the nicest piece of turf on the fairway, you've got to accept that, and you've got to think about how your neck's going to plot your way to the green and into the hole. That's a fantastic story, Jerry. I'm really glad you told me that one. That's awesome. I can just imagine it too. You know, the players, you know, and that'd be on Twitter now. Oh, we should be all getting free relief from a sand-filled divot, and everyone would be liking their tweets. Yeah, we should. But you know, exactly what you said. When does a divot stop becoming divot? Is it a game of perfect now? Everyone gets a perfect lie. I would absolutely hate for it to go down that path.
Well, we don't have to worry. It's not going there.
Hey, talking about game of perfect, Blakey. I think it's Bob Ratelli. He's got a book and it's called Golf is Not a Game of Perfect. There you go. You just coined it. And wasn't there an event on the US Tour this year? And I think Westwood and I think it might have been Deschambault went down the straight head to head. And on the 18th, Westwood hit a drive down middle of the fairway and found a divot hole.
Yeah, right.
He got up there, he looked at it, he just shrugged, knocked it on the green. Don't think he made par, he made a 3-putty, but he lost by 1. And the commentators were all about, oh, you know, what about this divot rule, Westwood? You know, that's it's just not fair. And he just said, hey, we play the course as we find it and the ball as it lies. There's nothing more to it. Nothing to see here, move on.
We hear all about the complaints.
Really
we hear about the complaints, but I never heard a player, when he hit it in the rough and got a great lie, I never heard him say, you know, I'm supposed to put this down a little deeper.
Yeah, let me put it under this big clump of rough. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a great point. You know, if it hits a tree and it should have gone out of bounds, but it goes into the middle of the fairway, it's a great point you make. You know, that just sums up golfers. Full stop. Golfers are just a bunch of Karens, really.
I hope you don't have any followers called Karen, Blakey.
I think I do, and I didn't mean it to.
Apologies, Karen.
I should I say I did, Fraser. I did. Yeah, they're gone. But you know, actually talking about Lee Westwood, I love the fact that you brought him up. He is. I've refereed him a few times. He is an absolute stalwart of the game of golf. Plays by the rules, accepts the referee's decision. Just a fantastic ambassador for the game of golf. Absolutely, I couldn't speak more highly of Lee Westwood when it comes to, you know, just accepting that what the game, the challenge of golf is. Really, really awesome. Actually, Jerry, talking about tour pros and refereeing, what do you think about tournament sites reporting infractions that you see on TV?
Well, the call-ins, you mean people from home
Yeah.
calling the tournament site and saying what they saw. I think there's been miscommunication on that. Most people don't like it. They think it shouldn't occur. And I think people don't understand it.
Yeah.
We as rules people and the tour officials have the same instruction. We're taught to get all available data. Whether it's players, caddy, spectator, we've got to take all the information we can before we make a decision on an adjudication. So sportsmen want to get things right. They want to get it right. Whether they're rooting for the team or not, they want to get it right. And people have to remember, when somebody calls in and reports what appears to be a violation, they're not making the ruling. They're just providing data, which is the referee's objective, is to get all available data. Now, what kills me about that is I see the tour guy on the tournament time when Roger Maltby is out there walking the course and they can't tell where a ball crossed the penalty area line. He's on his, you know, walkie-talkie there, and he's talking to the 18th tower. You know, hey, Johnny, look at that. Look at the tape there. Can you tell where the ball crossed? You know, that happens all the time and nobody says a word. So I ask, what is the difference between the terminal in the 18th tower and the terminal in the guy's living room in Des Moines?
It's
just providing data. So I think it should be allowed. And listen, rules officials aren't stupid. They're smart enough to hear that data, input it with all the other data they have, and make a decision one way or the other. You know, another thing, it might help the player.
Yeah.
Say we find out during the course of play that this player has incurred a one-shot penalty, didn't know it, and the caller calls in and says, this is what happened. Now the rules official has a chance to get to the player before he signs a scorecard. So it's like the divot rule. You know, they complain about one thing, but not the other. So anyway.
That's awesome. I'm glad you sort of, you know, said it in that way. Certainly with, you know, the rules officials, as we know, you know, if you've got 9 or 10 out there on the course, but having all these people watching the cameras, watching the TV, just having another set of eyes or another 100 set of eyes is, you know, from my mind, is better for the tournament. You don't want things changed later on, but, you know, it happened. If it's a fact, it happened. And I guess if it penalizes one person, that's unfortunate, but the infraction was there. But then it's helped another person who possibly has been playing by the rules all week, and, you know, they were more deserved of the win. So, and at the same time, what you say about, you know, the player, the officials, the referees aren't stupid. The people that are telling them, oh, this happened on the 17th hole, I saw this on TV, are usually people that they know, that they trust, that are rules officials themselves. I mean, most of the call-ins, like it's Fraser, how many, no offense, Fraser, but how many referees do you have on the European tour? Do you have phone numbers of?
Not many.
So, and that's my point. Like, I have a few just because I've refereed with a few people. So if I see something on TV, I'm just going to talk to them and say, hey, I saw this. And they're going to go, oh, well, I've worked with that guy. Let's check it out. And, you know, so they're usually coming from people they know, people that they've worked, that have worked with them. That's the call-ins just aren't from any random Bob or Betty, which people don't really understand. But, you know,
Yeah, you're right, Blakey, because we actually had a case of that at the Ryder Cup. On the last day of the singles, Shane Lowry was on the back of the 17th, the par 3, and he took what looked like to be a really strange form of relief.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
And my good friend was in the TV station doing the broadcasting. He was the rules cover, and that's dropped him saying, "Did you just see what happened there? Is, you know, do we know why he took that type of relief?" You know, so you're right. It's people who understand and know the rules that are calling in to say, "Hey, did you just spot that? Did I see something maybe you didn't?" The only thing I will say, I don't want to throw a spanner in the works for this, but there is an element of this which I find unsettling, and that is when we start accepting all these rulings from the call-ins, and you know, whether they're right or wrong, it unsettles me because I'm thinking, well, you've got a field of how many players? Is every shot being monitored? Is every infraction being caught? Are we really giving a level playing field? And I'm still on the fence with it. Still on the fence. But I'd rather someone was called in and was, say, pulled up for an infraction, particularly if it could mean the difference between win or lose. Yeah.
I mean, that will never, you know, that will never be the case. We'll never be able to have cameras watching every shot of every player. Sorry, at the moment, we aren't able to have every shot of every player. But who knows, in the future, you might have to attach a camera to your bag, and the camera has to show the ball, you know, at rest in the player's shot or something like that. Who knows what could happen in the future?
Okay. But there's a business idea for us, Blakey. Maybe we need to get into the drone business.
The drone, or cameras in caps, and the caddy has to wear the you know, a little, like the police do, you know, over in the States. They wear body cam and stuff like that. So, you know, that could be coming. It's another way that the PGA Tour could possibly monetize. But yeah, no, it's an interesting situation. I prefer the call-ins, but knowing that they are most likely being called in by someone who is or has some rules knowledge.
Even so, it's just data.
Yeah,
We're not making any ruling. They're just providing information. What can be wrong if you're adjudicating an issue with getting more information?
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I had 2 videos. Was it last year or the start of this year? Victor Hovland, 2 videos for Victor Hovland.
Penalty area. Yeah.
One was called in by his mum for a wrong place on a putting green because he spanned it. He moved it to the side and then forgot to put it back in the same spot, and his mum called in. And the other one, and it was in the same tournament, I think. Yeah, it was the Players. It was this year, the Players Championship. And the other one was he had a disagreement with the referee because the referee, you know, this is a hilarious situation, and I've covered it on a podcast. He comes in, the referee goes, well, what happened? So the referee is asking for the facts. The player doesn't know, and he says, oh, well, it may have crossed or it might not have crossed. And, you know, and the referee's going, well, if you don't know, and what's your best guess? we'd have to go with it didn't cross. You know, the last place crossed is back there. We know that, but we don't know whether it's jumped over and bounced back in or it's just hasn't made it. So the referee's just, you know, basically taking the facts from the player or the players around and saying, okay, I'm helping you with the decision. I'm not really making a decision. I'm just, this is what your facts are. We've deciphered for it, and this is what the decision will be. And then, you know, luckily in the 11th hour, the cameraman from across the fairway, I think it was the second hole, the cameraman from across the fairway has gone, oh yeah, no, it did cross, it did, or we've got footage and it did cross. You know, it took a little bit, but if that cameraman hadn't been there saying something, camera woman, camera person, then, you know, Victor would have had to go back to the other side of the penalty area. So the referee, you know, it's not like the referee saw it. He got on the radio, but they couldn't get the footage up. I'm not sure how that works with the whole cameraman's got the footage, but there was no footage to the tour truck. So the referee's done everything he can to find the facts. And then luckily some more facts were called in effectively just from across the fairway. And the right decision was made. So you're spot on, Jerry. It's just data. If the more data we can get, the better the decision we can make. So in your seminars, you talk about, and if you haven't watched a Jerry Duffy seminar, as Jerry said, just type it into YouTube. I'll put a link in the show note to one of your seminars, Jerry. You talk about actual comical interactions you've had with players. Can you fill us in on a couple of those?
Well, gosh, yeah, I can. I'm trying to think of some comical ones. I had the intervention with the obstruction one. I had a club pro behind a big double sprinkler box. I don't know if they have them down there, but we've got green sprinkler boxes for the sprinkler systems. And this particular one was a double decker. This is a big one. And his ball was right behind it, you know, and he's in the middle of bushes and everything. He had nothing. So he wasn't sure. He calls me over and he says, sir, do I get relief on that side of the sprinkler box or on this side of the sprinkler box? So we went through the three areas of interference. Live balls, okay. Stance is okay. I said, now, do you think you could get this club to hit that sprinkler box in your follow through? And he starts leaning, you know. I said, sir, there's no leaning here. No leaning. Just do your regular swing. And he took a couple and he said, no, I can't reach that sprinkler box. I said, well, sir, I'm afraid you don't get any relief. Oh, he says, that's wrong. That's wrong. I said, no, sir, that's right. And he says, no, he says, I want a second opinion. I said, sir, we're not bringing another rules official out here for such a basic rule. I said, you have no interference from that sprinkler. He said, he said, I was in Virginia Beach last summer and a PGA Tour professional referee gave me relief from the same situation. I said, well, sir, if you remember his name, I'd be glad to call him and tell him he made a mistake. Well, he wouldn't have any of it. So he's hemming and hawing. He went again, going back to second opinion nonsense. I said, look, you know, and then you guys know this as a rules official, I don't talk like this when I'm talking to a player. I mean, I'm very calm, very subdued, very professional, you know, but you got to draw the line. You can't be wishy-washy. You got to end this deal at some point. So finally I said to the player, look, you got two options here. He says, now you're talking. I said, you can hook it or you can fade it. And I turned around and walked away. And that was the end of that one. And I never did find out which one he picked. Let me see if I can give you another one.
I think you should copyright that one, Jerry. That's a classic.
Listen, there's several of them. I had one. This one, you know, you guys know when there's a ball sitting out there, you don't know whether it's a abandoned ball or not. You don't want somebody to come along hitting a bad ball, you know. So I'm staring at this ball, waiting for somebody to show up. Sure enough, player comes over the hill. He looks down. I say, Titleist one. He says, yes, sir. I said, right here. So he comes down and says, oh, thank you, sir. Thank you. Now, over this ball, about shoulder height, is a dead branch. It's hanging on by its thread, you know. So I said, sir, watch that branch there. You know, if you knock that over, knock that off that tree. We got an improvement issue here of your intended swing. I said, that's a problem. Oh, thanks, Duffy. I appreciate that. So I got my cart and went up the top of the hill, and I turned around, and these prima donna players over here, they're wigglers. A lot of them are wigglers and wagglers. Well, this guy was a real wiggler. He's wiggling and waggling, the knees are going and the arms going. And this practice hits the branch. Boom, down to the ground. Well, he stops and he waves me down off the hill, and I come down. He looks at me and he says, is that 1 or 2? I said, that's 2, sir. He said, is that the dumbest thing you've ever seen? I said, it's pretty close. It's pretty close. Oh, I'll tell you one more quick one, because these interactions are fun. We were doing a college event, and the night before they had the dinner, and they're getting ready to, they made the announcements, and they're ready to serve the dinner, and the microphone was just laying there. So I can't let, the microphone just lay there empty. So I grabbed it and I reminded all the players of the workshops we have to go through to become rules officials. And I said, you people are very fortunate, because the person running this tournament had a perfect 100. One of the few people in the country with a perfect 100, Mr. Randy Reed, and everybody stood up. Yay, Randy. That was the end of that. And then we had dinner. Well, following afternoon, I'm on this hole with a lot of temporary water, and I'm trying to figure out, the relief for this player, and the cart path there, and a fence, and where the dry area was. Finally, I said, son, I want you to put a tee in the ground right there. That's your nearest point. Oh, he said, no. My nearest point's over here. I said, no, son, that's closer to the hole. He said, well, no, my nearest point's over here. No, son, I'm telling you, I've looked at it all. I want you to put a tee in the ground. I want a second opinion. You can't get a second opinion for this. See, I want the guy that had the 100. So, I said, no, you're not getting the guy that got the 100. You're getting me. So that's the end of that. That's a couple of them.
Did you? Well, actually, you've thrown yourself under the bus now. What's the highest score that you've got at the USGA?
I got 98. And here, wait a minute. Look what I have. I don't know if you can see this, but that's one of the ones my friends gave me. I did get this one framed. But I think I did have 198. I've been to 14 of them, or 12 or 14 of them. And my wife says to me, she says, don't you know him by now? I said, of course I know him. I'm not going there to know him. I said, I'm going there to learn what I forgot. So
98.
But I'm sure Fraser gets me.
98's a great score.
No, hey, Jerry, you if it's any consolation, sir, you got 100 out of 100 on my quiz, and you corrected me on 2. So there you go. That must be worth a little silver casket. 100 on Razzie's quiz.
Yeah, correcting Fraser. That's a real feather in my cap in correcting you. I can tell you that.
102.
Yeah. And the funniest thing was, Blakey, this question, it was 51. It was my favorite interpretation, 19.2/5. And I still, even now, a few weeks after speaking to Chair, I still don't know how did I get it wrong? How did I write that question the wrong way round? Actually, Jerry, you talk about writing quizzes, and you follow me and let me do that. I tell you, it is an art. My heart goes out to anybody who is willing to put their head on the chopping block and write rules of golf questions, because there are just so many facets you have to think about when you construct a question. Because if you get one little aspect wrong, or you interject one wrong word, it can change the answer.
Yeah,
so I'll leave the writing to you. I'll talk about them. You write them.
Yeah, it took me a long time to hone those skills, and I'll be honest, I'm still learning every time I write a question. You write it down, you look at it, you think, oh, I didn't think about that aspect, So yeah.
I had a question the other day, missed the word free. Just missed the word free. That meant at least 2 of the questions were right. You could look at it either way. So you're right, Fraser. Just little one word, 2 word, but well done on your 98 Jerry. That's a fantastic effort. So are you going to go again next year?
I am going. In order to maintain your USGA certification,
Yes.
you have to go every 4 years. And I didn't go last year because of COVID, so I'm going to be going back this year.
Yeah, nice, excellent. And lastly, what would your least favorite rule be? What would your least favorite rule be?
Well, I think, as I mentioned before, it's least and favorite are just two things I'd never associate with rules. I just don't make that connection. I think a better one would be rules you don't understand.
Yep.
And as I pointed out, the two of them, the embedded ball rule and the backstopping, are two that I don't understand. So, but I don't use the phrase favorite or least favorite or most favorite. Rules are rules. And it's presumptuous of me to expound on, what are good rules and bad rules. In my seminars, I always say, they always ask why. Why? And I say, I don't do whys, I don't do gonnas, and I don't do used to be's. But so I'll leave that to folks like Fraser.
Yeah, that reminds me of Fraser and I, a friend of ours, Jeff Ward. He's not there for the principles of the rules. He's just there to apply the rules as they are. As a referee, he's just applying the rules as they are. He's not there to tell the player or tell anyone what he thinks, his opinion of it. It's just, how do I apply this rule in the situation, and it's in front of me, so that the player and all the field get the best outcome, the correct outcome. So
the way I put that is, somebody said, well, you penalized him, sir. I did not penalize him. The rules of golf penalized him. I'm simply the mouthpiece.
That's right. That's exactly right. We're just the messenger. As rules nerds, as referees, as officials, we're just the messenger, just passing it on. Well, I thank you very much. Fraser, did you have any other questions for Jerry?
No, I think you've covered a lot here. Well done, Blakey. I've been doing the checklist. That's my job tonight, just to do the checklist. No, it's been great. It's great chatting to you, Jerry, and listening to all your stories. We could do this for the rest of our lives, and I think we would learn something new every day with every interview, and it's just a real pleasure, having the opportunity to chat to people all over the world about something we all love, the rules of golf, and we all learn something new from each other every time we open up the rule book and debate what it means when it says this. So it's been great having a chance to chat.
Yeah, it's been awesome having you on, Jerry, and next time we get you on, because we'll have a part 2, we'll be able to hear a lot more of your stories, which were just fantastic. I mean, you had me in stitches a couple of times, which is just brilliant. Like, I'll have to take out the audible on that, but it was fantastic. We'll get you on for a part 2 for more stories, because I can't wait. So thank you very much.
Enjoyed it.
And very important, the Golf Rules question of the week for episode 51. Jerry has sent me one through, so I'm just going to ask it now. Fraser mistakenly runs over Blakey's ball with his cart, embedding it. Blakey, showing his rules knowledge, says under the embedded ball rule, he can drop the ball within 1 club length from the relief reference point, which is immediately behind the ball. Was Blakey correct? Thank you to everyone who's listened today. I hope you enjoyed it, our chat with Jerry and Fraser, and look out for episode 52 coming out soon.